Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Hartford Whalers Expansion Franchise here on NHL 24. Happy times right now in Hartford as we're set for a playoff run opening against the New York Rangers here in the first round of the Stanley Cup Playoffs now into the 2028 playoffs here as we are going to host the Rangers here as we did end up with the second seed out of the Metro Division, 2 points ahead of the Rangers, I believe. Now the Islanders are going to host the New Jersey Devils as the Islanders coming off a President's Trophy, far and away the most points of any team during the regular season. Toronto and Tampa Bay in that classic round one matchup out of the Atlantic, and the top seed there in the Atlantic, the Florida Panthers, are going to host the top wildcard team in the Carolina Hurricanes as both wildcards come out of the Metro Division yet again. Now going over to the Western Conference, Minnesota is going to host the Dallas Stars. Of course, the Wild won the Stanley Cup back in year 2 of this franchise. Chicago Blackhawks are going to host the Colorado Avalanche as the Blackhawks won it back in year 3, so they could be on dynasty watch if they're able to secure another one here in a 3-year span, as the Avalanche now without Landeskog and without Cale Makar, a different look Avalanche team as they were able to sneak into the playoffs with a good second half to the season. And the defending Stanley Cup champion Anaheim Ducks are going to host the Los Angeles Kings, as the Ducks also on dynasty watch if they can string together back-to-back Stanley Cup championships. And the Edmonton Oilers going to host the St. Louis Blues. I think the Blues were the bottom team to sneak into the playoffs. The Oilers won it back in year 1. So all 4 Stanley Cup champions over the course of this franchise are apparent here in the Western Conference playoffs, as they have taken it every single year. The Western Conference has secured the Stanley Cup every year. We're hoping to bring it back east, and we see here the Islanders with 120 points finished atop the entire NHL with 57 wins. We were behind them with 50 wins, the most we've ever had in franchise history, with 107 points, finishing at 50, 25, and 7, and the Rangers right behind us at 50, 27, and 5. So those 2 overtime losses we had proved to be the difference. And then the Carolina Hurricanes with 102. So 4 teams here in that Metro with over 100 points during the regular season. It's truly the toughest division in hockey right now, and the Devils were able to supplant the Flyers, who held that final wildcard spot for most of the season. But the Devils, a strong finish to the year, were able to sneak in as the bottom seed now in the Eastern Conference this year. The Penguins at 86 points at 7th in the division. Blue Jackets with 84 at 8th in the division. Both, decent seasons, and I think both of these teams maybe would have snuck in the Western Conference. And the Washington Capitals, the worst team in the Eastern Conference this season. Also their first year post Alexander Ovechkin after he retired. They finished with just 64 points. And now going over to the Atlantic, we saw the Panthers with 116, finished with actually just 4 points behind the Islanders, I believe. So they actually were vying for another President's Trophy. The Maple Leafs here at second with 99 points. The Lightning with 92, getting that third spot, as the Red Wings with 90 points finished just short of a wild card spot, as the Devils had 95, so actually not quite just missing out, still a 5-point difference there, as they were holding that final wildcard spot for a little bit towards the end of the season, but finished poorly, as also the Senators did. They were vying for a spot. The Canadiens, Sabres, Bruins even all fell out of favor, as the Sabres were last year's Eastern Conference champions, and they failed to even reach the postseason. And now going over to the Western Conference, we'll start in the Pacific. The Oilers at the top with 103 points. Anaheim right behind them as they look to go back-to-back. And the Kings holding that third spot. Then a huge drop-off here, 22 points down, as the Flames at 73 points. Tied with the Canucks, the Sharks at 69, the Golden Knights at 67. And the Seattle Kraken, I think, finished as the bottom team this season with the best lottery odds at the number 1 pick. And this Pacific Division just absolutely abysmal. Only 3 teams worthy of even vying for a playoff spot. And now going over to the Central, the Blackhawks with 101 finished at the top, followed by the Minnesota Wild, Dallas Stars, Colorado Avalanche, and the St. Louis Blues sneak in with 87 points. The Jets 3 behind them, and the Predators and Coyotes also kind of in contention there. It came down to the final few games here for that final wildcard spot in the Western Conference. So this is kind of just our Year 5 wrap-up episode. We are going to take a look at some player stats, but before that, we'll go league-wide and see who finished with the most goals, the most points, and all that fun stuff in this Year 5 season. So we see here Claude Giroux with 108 points. That might be a career high, a 50-goal season at 40 years old. Just unbelievable, as he's now on his 4th team after being traded to Florida for a few games, spent 3 years with Ottawa, and then signed with Tampa Bay 3 years back, as he's trying to get a Stanley Cup championship. 50 goals from Claude Giroux. That's absolutely insane. He's now over 500 for his career, over 900 assists, as he made up that top line for Tampa Bay with Nikita Kucherov and Braden Point, who are all top 3 in the league this season in points. The only 3 players to go for over 100. And I remember Point had the most points back in the year 2 season, I believe, or maybe that was even year 1. But he had 81 assists as well, which I'm going to assume led the league, as it did. almost 1 assist per game, which smashed his previous career high, as he's been absolutely phenomenal over the course of this franchise. Now, career-wise, averaging over a point per game at .919 in under 900 games. Cale Makar second in assists his first season as a member of the Dallas Stars, 15 goals, 68 assists, as he posted his highest point total in about 5 seasons, going all the way back to 2021-2022, where he had 86 points. But a great debut season there in Dallas nonetheless, as maybe he'll have a revenge series against the Avalanche here coming up. But also going back to points leaders now, Connor McDavid with 98, finished 2 short of 100. He had 45 goals, 53 assists. Jason Robertson, I think, finished with the most goals at 51, as he also had 96 points. Sebastian Aho, now a member of the Anaheim Ducks, towards the top with 94. Clayton Keller, still of the Coyotes, with 94, tied with Aho. Alex DeBrincat, Brady Tkachuk, their teammates for Ottawa, both with 93, and Sam Reinhart with 90. The last player this season to eclipse that mark, as Martin Necas here now with the St. Louis Blues ends with 88, 61 assists there, definitely towards the top of the league. Mika Zibanejad, we're going to see him in this upcoming series. 45 goals for him, 41 assists with 86 points total. That was his highest mark in 3 seasons. But the 45 goals, that might be a career high, I think, as it was. So Mika Zibanejad, a career high 45 goals here at 34 years old, as he's in line for another playoff series. We'll take a look at his career playoff stats with 71 points in 85 games, but still in search of that first Stanley Cup ring. Dylan Larkin, 86 points here. Cole Caulfield with 85. Matthew Tkachuk, only 8 behind his brother. Lucas Raymond of Detroit. Leon Draisaitl, his production taking a little bit of a dip this season. Kirill Kaprizov, 52 assists from him with 85 points there. Tied with Connor Bedard, as he's trying to lead the Blackhawks back to another Stanley Cup champion. Austin Matthews still looking for his first. Alexander Barkov looking for his second or his third at this point in the franchise. Tim Stützle here up at 84. He's always towards the top. Matthew Barzal, Vladimir Tarasenko, a running mate there with Connor Bedard in Chicago. Troy Terry, Cale Makar, Dominic Kubalik, he's really broken out with Detroit. Michael Misa, last year's Calder Trophy winner there for Dallas. Nathan McKinnon with 80. William Nylander with 80. And then Robert Thomas there with 79. Now we'll go to goals. And Robertson did lead the way with 51. Claude Giroux, one behind him with 50. Zibanejad tied for third here with Connor McDavid. Each had 45. Kucherov with 44. And then a bunch of guys here with 42, including McKinnon, DeBrincat, Austin Matthews. Christopher Versteeg here for the St. Louis Blues was his second overall pick back in 2025. He now has a career season at 21 years old. Only his second season, though, so he's definitely going to emerge, it seems, as one of the best goal scorers in this franchise, posting 42 as a 21-year-old, doubling his age. Kyle Connor breaks 40, of course. Cole Caulfield with 40. Zachariah Reichel, now at 19 years old, of the New Jersey Devils. He was the third overall pick back in 2026, and he posted a 40-goal season at just 19 years old. Had 35 last year as a rookie, as an 18-year-old, but still not enough to win Rookie of the Year over Michael Misa. Jack Eichel with 38. Matthew Tkachuk also with 38. Same with Aho. Adrian Kempe with 37. Brady Tkachuk with 36, just 2 behind his brother, although he did have more points than Matthew. Alexander Barkov, 35. Same for Tavares. Lucas Raymond. Jyrki Kontanen, the phenom here for the Flyers, former first overall pick in 2026. He had 40 goals as a 19-year-old, but his production did dip a little bit, but still 68 points as a 20-year-old. He's going to be one of the best, already at franchise potential, I believe, 94 overall, as he's definitely going to, I think, emerge as a Connor McDavid type of player. Patrick Kane up here, former Hartford Whaler great, still 34 goals, 73 points, although Vegas were one of the worst teams in the NHL this season. We have Josh Ellis here, a left wing for the Coyotes at 18-year-old. He was his second overall pick in this past draft, and already playing a full season here at 18 years old, 53 points, 34 goals, as the Coyotes look to have a very good dynamic winger there alongside Clayton Keller, who matched the 34 goals there of Ellis, but had 60 assists, ending up with 94 points. Draisaitl with 34, same with Anton Lundell. Mats Tammernes, a young player here for the Detroit Red Wings, former third overall pick. Tage Thompson, Jesper Bratt, David Pasternak, William Nylander, Kirill Kaprizov, all with 33. Drake Batherson now of Washington there with 32. As when I'll take it to assists, we saw Point led with 81, Makar behind him at 68, and then Sam Reinhart, Adam Fox here, each with 67. Fox and Makar have split all 4 Norris trophies over the course of this franchise so far, looking to probably be Makar again for his third in 5 years. Quinn Hughes behind them. He signed, of course, with the Islanders, as 2 of maybe the top 3 defensemen in the NHL switched teams over this past offseason. Quinn Hughes with 65 assists, 5th in the league, also ended with 72 points. Mitch Marner with 62, still on the Maple Leafs. Martin Necas, Robert Thomas, both of the Blues, each had 61. Clayton Keller with 60. Nikita Kucherov, 59, as he had over 100 points playing on that top line with Giroux and Braden Point. They're going to be absolute dynamite here in the postseason, you would think, all experienced, ready to go. Michael Misa with 59. Nick Suzuki, despite missing 11 games, still ended with 59 assists towards the top of the league. Filip Hronek racking up the points here with the Ducks, now up to elite potential, 88 overall, but that's not fully uncovered, but definitely a career year there on the blue line for Hronek. Drew here with 58, led the league with 108 points. Larkin, we saw Connor Bedard. Bowen Byram still with the Avalanche, 57 assists, as he's really emerged in the vacancy there of Cale Makar, now the number one defenseman for the Avalanche. Nico Hischier, we have not seen him. He had 57 assists, also a 20-goal season from him. Sebastian Aho. Fabian Zetterlund, he was back with the Devils on a one-year contract, originally drafted by them, but I think traded to San Jose in that Timo Meier trade, but has since now found his way back to New Jersey. But we'll see if they re-sign him on just that one-year contract. As I mentioned, Barzal up here, Dominic Kubalik, Johnny Gaudreau, you love to see him still delivering at this point in the franchise. 53 assists from him on 71 points. Tim Stützle down here, also Carter Verhaeghe, very productive left wing there for Florida. Connor McDavid, Mikko Rantanen still with Colorado. Noah Dobson with 52 among the top defensemen in this franchise. Still with the Islanders, Elias Peterson. Charlie McAvoy still with Boston. Shea Theodore of Vegas. Brandon Montour, we finally see a Hartford Whaler among the league leaders as he cracked 50 assists. Thomas Chabot, Leon Draisaitl now getting into some defensemen, although DeBrincat, Lucas Raymond, now Noah Lutz. He was a former first overall pick back in 2026. So correction, I think I said Continent was 2026. He must have been 2025, and Lutz was the following year. A 60-point season, 50 assists, 10 goals for the playmaker, former number one overall pick, trying to get it going. Brent Clark up here, he had an overtime winner against us earlier in the season. Philip Forsberg, Mikhail Sergachev still with the Lightning, Jake Gensel still with Pittsburgh, Mark Scheifele. We finally see a Whalers forward, as that will round out the players who eclipsed 50 assists. Will now go to plus minus, and leading the way was Vladimir Tarasenko at plus 47. Barkov and Artem Zub tied with 44, both of the Panthers. Draisaitl, McDavid with 42. Of course, they're playing on the top line there for Edmonton. Kylington of Florida, Connor Bedard, Matthew Tkachuk, Kevin Fiala of the Los Angeles Kings. Surprised to see a Kings player all the way up here. Sam Reinhart, a lot of Florida Panthers. Sebastian Aho, Andrew Peeke of our Whalers at 36 for plus minus, playing with Ivan Provorov, who will probably be towards the top here as well. Kevin LeBlanc of the Rangers, we're going to see him in our upcoming playoff series. Adam Pelech, Alex DeBrincat, Brady Tkachuk, Zach Hyman, Martin Necas, Mika Zibanejad, Anton Lundell, and we see Provorov there at 32. And then penalty minutes, of course, is going to be Marcus Foligno, former Hartford Whaler. We had him for the first 3 years of this franchise, or make it, I guess, 2 1/3, because we did trade him at that trade deadline deal, included him in that trade where we got Yaroslav Askarov. And I think he's led in penalty minutes pretty much every season so far. Trent Frederick behind him with 61. We had Jamie Oleksiak, also of the Ducks, leading all defensemen at 52. Giovanni Smith. Timo Meier now of the Islanders. Mats Tomarnis, we saw he was towards the top in goals and points. Scott Mayfield of San Jose. Topi Antia, one of the best two-way forwards now emerging in the NHL. He had 74 points for Montreal at 20 years old. And I think also towards the top in hits. Radko Gudas, Anthony Mantha, Barrett Hayton, and now going to shot percentage. And also the league leader in goals with 51. The leader in shooting percentage was Jason Robertson. He had 22.7%. We'll see someone behind him as 204 shots from Cole Caulfield. He finished at 19.6%. And then third, we'll say, was Anders Lee, 19.4% on 139 shots. He had 27 goals there, the captain of the Islanders, as they're looking for a deep playoff run, finishing as a President's Trophy winner. Nathan McKinnon led with 9 game-winning goals. Power play goals leader was Nikita Kucherov with 14. Robertson had 12. And we saw Josh Ellis earlier of the Arizona Coyotes. He had 10 goals on the power play. Leading in points was Kucherov, Draisaitl, Point, Claude Giroux, and then Keller and Nugent Hopkins with 20 shorthanded goals. The leader was Sebastian Aho with 3, and then a bunch of guys here with 2, including Sharon Govich, who we're going to see against the Rangers in that playoff series. Joel Farabee, a pending free agent who we might take a look at this upcoming offseason. Also, Vincent Trocheck of the Rangers. So the Rangers definitely can score shorthanded. William Eklund led with 5 shorthanded points. Now, time on ice per game, that's actually going to go to Vince Dunn of Seattle. Definitely a poor defensive unit they had, so he had to bear most of the load there. Adam Fox, Noah Dobson, Brant Clark, Cale Makar, Mikhail Sergachev, and our very own Brandon Montour here towards the top, all at over 25 minutes per game. Same story here with Forsling, Bowen Byram, Seth Jones, Charlie McAvoy, Filip Hronek, Rasmus Ristolainen, now in Vancouver, as we consider taking him on over the offseason. Now going over to face-off leader, none of these guys met the requisite amount of face-offs to be in consideration. We have Leon Draisaitl here at just 179 face-offs, but very effective at 64.8%. Now a more primary centerman here, Claude Giroux at 429 face-offs, at 59.2%, but I think he was mostly on the wing. It might have been Braden Point as the main centerman on that line, along with Kucherov. John Tavares here, though, over 1,400 faceoffs. He was at 58.3%, so we'll say he led the league in faceoff percentage. Right behind him was Sidney Crosby, now of Calgary, at 57.8%. 40 years old now. We'll see if he calls it up and hangs up the skates after this season. Ryan O'Reilly at 56.9% of Boston, as they failed to make the playoffs. And also Patrice Bergeron here of Winnipeg now at 56.7%. Leading in hits was Topi Antia of the Montreal Canadiens, 20 years old, former 8th overall pick from the 2025 NHL draft, his third year in the show, and he had 74 points, over 30 goals, over 40 assists, and he's really coming along as I think one of the best forwards in all of the NHL. Still very, very young there for Montreal, as their nucleus of forwards, very young, a lot of potential, and other players with over 200 hits include Nico Hischier, Barrett Hayton of Arizona, and also William Eklund of the Sharks, and also Marco Rossi, Brady Tkachuk, Nicholas Roy, Pierre-Luc Dubois, and Slavkovsky. Also towards the top, Matthew Tkachuk, Joel Eriksson Ek, and going over to block shots, the leader, Bowen Byram, as we mentioned, really was forced to pick up a lot of the slack left behind by Cale Makar. Rasmus Anderson behind him. Jyrki Kakko of the Los Angeles Kings, former first-round pick from 2025, an offensive defenseman. He had 37 points, very productive, and also very productive blocking shots. You don't really expect to see that from that kind of archetype of a defenseman. Zach Werenski, a pending free agent who we're hoping to make a run at, with 130 sitting there with Brady Skjei, Noah Dobson, Connor Timmins, Devon Toews now of Calgary, Shea Theodore, all here towards the top. Leading in giveaways was Jalen Chatfield of Colorado. Leading in takeaways, we have Clayton Keller of Arizona. Also, Yulf Hedin was the second overall pick from 2024, where we drafted Sami Maki at number 1. And Yulf Hedin was the ensuing pick, really coming along as a strong centerman here for Seattle, over 60 points now in back-to-back seasons, although that minus 16, got to get that up as Seattle continues to build, as they're going to have probably another top 3 pick in this year's class. Kaprizov, Marco Rossi, Bo Horvat, even Jyrki Kontanen up here, Nathan McKinnon, Zachary Benson of San Jose, Marco Kasper of Detroit. And now getting to fights, Marcus Foligno with 15. He is definitely the heavyweight in the league right now. The fighting numbers are dropping every single season, as the enforcer, definitely a dying breed in the NHL. Trent Frederick with 6, a few guys here with 5, including Alexiak, Giovanni Smith, Ricardo Mendoza of Las Vegas, draft pick from 2024, a third-round pick that year. He had 20 points. Scott Mayfield, and also with 4 here, Radko Gudas, Tanner Ginot. He's usually more towards the top, but I feel like he didn't really play. Only 18 games and 4 fights in that span, so definitely on pace for a lot more if he saw the ice more. Bertuzzi, Thomas Tatar, Topi Antia had a couple. We've been talking about him a bunch, and then a bunch of guys here with 2. I don't think we had a single fight from any player on our team. Now we're going to go over to goaltending, and then after this, take a look at our own player stats before jumping into the playoff preview. Ilya Sorokin, of course, the goaltender here of the President's Trophy winner. New York Islanders had 49 wins, which was 7 more than Spencer Knight here, who finished second. But look at that record from Sorokin, 49-14-4 with 5 shutouts and 912 save percentage, 256 goals against. But Spencer Knight's numbers were even better with 8 shutouts, 916 save percentage, 232 goals against, and he was 42-14-4. Ilya Samsonov finished third in wins with 39 for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Also finished second with 7 shutouts. Carter Hart with 37 was tied with Alexander Gorgiev now of Colorado still, and Carter Hart still here on the Flyers. Had only 1 shutout though, with a sub 900 save percentage and a goals against over 3.1, so not the best season there from Carter Hart. John Gibson, of course, up here still with Anaheim, coming off a Stanley Cup championship. Jeremy Swayman now of the Kings, tied there with 36. Also, Jesper Wallstedt had 36 wins as well. But Pyotr Kochetkov of Carolina, 35-14-4 with 4 shutouts. He led the NHL, I believe, with 922 save percentage and a 237 goals against. So that was just a little bit behind Spencer Knight. But Kochetkov, another tremendous season for Carolina. He also led the NHL last season in save percentage and goals against average. And we have Aiden Hill here, now the goaltender of the New York Rangers, last year's Vezina Trophy winner, but probably not going to repeat, with a 901 save percentage, 286 goals against, which is good, and still a very good record at 35-20-5 for the Rangers. We're going to see him a lot in this upcoming playoff series. UC Saros down here, 32-31-4. Tristan Jarry still the goaltender of Pittsburgh. Still the same story here with Vitek Vanecek. Each of them had 30 wins. Same with Vasilevsky. He's now 33 years old, and I think set to hit free agency as he is on an expiring contract, so he is seeing a little bit of regression. No shutouts all season, and that save percentage at .887, the goals against at .337, a very, very bad season from Vasilevsky, one of the best goaltenders over the course of his career, but now seeing some regression, and we'll see what happens in free agency and we'll also see if he can pick it up here in the playoffs. Yaroslav Askarov missed a bunch of time over the course of this season, just 48 games played, but a very good win percentage at 30, 12, and 6. 4 shutouts in that span with a .902 save percentage, 288 goals against. And now sorting by shutouts. Now it led the NHL. Samsonov right behind him. And then with 6, we had Jordan Binnington, also John Gibson, and then a bunch of guys tied here with 5. Jake Ottinger, he had kind of a down season based on his standard. Shesterkin, playing on a very bad Calgary team, but trying to hold it down after signing a big contract a few years ago. Gorgiev, Linus Ullmark, now it's still with Boston. Sorokin, 5 as well. And then Jet Greaves with 4, despite only playing in 23 games. So Jet Greaves might be the best backup goaltender in the NHL this season. So if we're able to expose Adin Hill, they have a very good backup plan, it seems. Also, Colton Ellis up here with 4 shutouts. He split time there in Edmonton, 23, 15, and 3 for the former third-round pick of the St. Louis Blues. His first real season of NHL action, he actually held it down very well for Edmonton, and he might even be their starting goaltender going into the postseason. That's an interesting development there. Of course, 4 here from Askarov, Kochetkov, Vitek Vanacek, Matt Murray, now of Ottawa, former Hartford Whaler, as he found his way back with the Senators. And now save percentage leader is going to be Kochetkov. We'll say you got to play at least, half your team's games. He had 55, so a .922 does tie him with Jet Greaves, who we said probably the best backup in the NHL this season. Mackenzie Blackwood, another very good backup at 10-9-1. A .921 save percentage of Buffalo, but among starting goaltenders, Spencer Knight at second with .916, Jesper Wallstedt third at .913. We also see Connor Ingram, backup goalie for Dallas, Ilya Sorokin, fourth among starting goaltenders at .912, Binnington at fifth, or I guess they're tied at .912. Same here with Kevin Lankinen, split time there. And Winnipeg, 41 games played for him, Samsonov at .912 as well. And then Gorgiev at .910, a good season for him, as he's kind of asserted himself as a starting goaltender there in Colorado. And now goals against, the leader is going to be Spencer Knight at .232, also led in shutouts. Kochetkov right behind him, and Sorokin. Teratukin, we'll take a look at him. A second-round pick of Detroit back in 2025. His first NHL action is he went 4-0-1, 6'1", 191, so maybe a very young goaltender here with a lot of potential, as he does have elite to medium potential. The former second-round pick out of Russia there for Detroit. So we might see him a lot next season. Mackenzie Blackwood, Kevin Lankinen, we saw them as top backups this season. Wallstedt, Jordan Binnington, Scott Wedgwood, now with Florida, former backup here for Hartford. And we're going to go over to assists and see which goalie led with the most assists. And actually is going to be Yaroslav Askarov with 3, as he's tied with Thatcher Demko of Chicago, now Binnington, and also Carter Hart. Did we get any goalie goals this season? As we did not. We had one from Marc-Andre Fleury back. That was year 1 or year 2, but we have not had one since. I still do not know how that happened, but that's the league leaders now in year 5, as we're going to segue now into our player stats, and we should be able to get through this aspect pretty quick, as we're just going to go over our team. So Mark Scheifele now, his 4th year as a member of the Whalers. He's led our team in points every single season so far. I think his first season, though, where he failed to surpass 30 goals, but he did hit 50 assists, 76 points total. He is now over 1,000 for his career. Looking at his playoff stats from that year 2 playoff run, I think he did lead our team in points during that playoff run with 9 points in 11 games. As we're now back in the postseason for only the second time over the course of this franchise, the first time since year 2. Leo Carlsson, a career high season for him with 70 points, 25 goals the first time he's eclipsed 20, and also 45 assists, a career high for him, as he also went plus 24 there and plus minus, really coming along now at age 23, a breakout season up to an 86 overall. Hopefully he can get a little bit more progression going into next season. Brian Rust, what a phenomenal story he was after trading for him at the trade deadline. He matched 19 points in 19 games played for 1 per game and added 10 goals in that span, which included a hat trick there against the Minnesota Wild. So Brian Rust proved to be a very good addition at the trade deadline and really sparked our team playing there on that second line. Filip Zadina, 27 goals, 40 assists. He kind of cooled down towards the second half of the season. I thought he was in line to post career highs across the board, but finished 2 short on points with 67, which was down from 69 last year. The assists down by 1 to 40, and the goals down from 28 to 27, but still a very good season for Zadina, who had 10 power play points, a career high, and that was a good first season after signing a 4-year extension last offseason. Let's take a look at his playoff stats. We'll see how he did. And that was only a 3-point showing, as I believe we did beat the Columbus Blue Jackets in 5 or 6 games, and we fell to the Islanders in like 4 or 5. So now Brandon Montour, one of the few players on our team with Stanley Cup pedigree. Of course, we saw Brian Rust. He has 2 there with the Penguins. That was a big reason why we traded for him. But Montour, 51 assists, led all our defensemen on our team, of course, with 61 points, also 10 goals. His second season in Hartford, and he was phenomenal there, paired up with Sami Maki most of the way. And Montour won that cup back with the Florida Panthers back in 2022, 2023, as he had a great postseason, 8 goals, 13 points points total. And we're hoping between he and Rust, they can help us break through that barrier and, get a deep playoff run going. We'll take a look at Bryan Rust's playoff stats. 38 points in 90 games of playoff experience, which we definitely need on this team. Not much playoff experience to go around. Of course, we do have Montour and Bryan Rust. Did we look at Karlsson's playoff stats from that year 2 season? I don't think we did. He had 4 points in 11 games, so Karlsson and Zadina, not the best postseason showings back then, but now different players, a lot better, and a better team around them as well. Brock Besser finishes with 22 goals, 60 points, 38 assists. He is set to hit free agency, but hopefully we can bring him back on like a 1 or 2 year contract. Only his second time in the postseason, the first time in about 7 or 8 years here for Brock Besser. Welcome back, Andrew Mangiapane with 28 goals, 31 assists for 59 points. Another very good season from our captain, as he's been super consistent over the course of this franchise now. 5 straight seasons of at least 50 points with our Whalers. His most goals he's had as he matches last year at 28, but 31 assists is up from last season, and more notably, the 16 power play points, the most he's ever had with 8 power play goals, and I believe he did lead our team in that stat. And now going to playoff stats, as he was our captain back in that year 2 playoff run where he had 9 points in 11 games, 8 assists, just 1 goal. And now going down the board a little bit, Gabriel Landeskog, another player here with Stanley Cup pedigree. A big part why we traded it for him over the offseason from Colorado. 25 goals, which was way up from last year, only 12 goals last season. His first 20-goal season in about 4 years. And he also had 33 assists, 58 points, which is a 2-point improvement from last season. And now looking at his playoff stats, a lot of playoff experience here for Landeskog. 100 games and just under a point per game with 94, 35 postseason goals. So we have Montour, Rust, and Landeskog, all of whom have won a Stanley Cup. And that also includes Jack Roslovic, actually. We'll go look at his playoff stats. He was traded to the Chicago Blackhawks for the 2026 NHL Playoffs. He played 24 games with them in the postseason, only 15 with them in the regular season, as he proved to be a key contributor in that postseason run, 17 points in 24 games, and he's looking to add another Stanley Cup championship. So we actually have 4 players who have won Stanley Cups in Roslovic, Landeskog, Rust, and Montour. Tom Wilson with 50 points. His 4th season as a Hartford Whaler came over with Mark Scheifele in that year 2 offseason, or that would have been year 1 actually, but he is starting to see some regression now at 34 years old. He was with us for that playoff run back in year 2, had 6 points on 11 games played. And I think he also actually has a Stanley Cup championship with Washington, that one going back to 2017-2018. So Tom Wilson, another player with a Stanley Cup ring on this team, as we actually have more experience than I originally thought. Denis Gurianov with 30 points. Ivan Provorov second among defensemen with 28, his second season, I believe, in Hartford. We'll look at his stats. Or no, make it his 3rd season in Hartford. I think he is on an expiring contract, matched his point total of 28 from last season, but as we saw, a plus 32 this year and plus minus, among the best in the league. Also 31 playoff games. His last appearance in that 2025 playoffs, where we actually eliminated, at that point he was on the Blue Jackets. We beat them in 5 games. And now Sami Maki, the number 1 overall pick from 2024, really coming into his own now, up to 89 overall, his 4th season, as he set a new career high with 15 assists, had 24 points, which matches his career high from year 3, but the plus 22, you love to see that, and the 9 goals way up from only 2 last season. Cole Sillinger, our 4th line center most of the way, 23 points for him. Jordan Spence was a little bit disappointing after trading for him this past offseason. 4 goals, 13 assists, and 17 points. Ryan Graves, we got him at the trade deadline. Of course, not known for his offensive prowess. In 19 games, he had 1 goal, 1 assist, and 2 points with our Whalers. Does have some playoff experience with over 50 games played, most recently with the Carolina Hurricanes a couple years back. Andrew Peeke had a plus 36, which was towards the top in plus minus. 5 goals, 11 assists. Jacob Perreault secured that last spot as our 12th forward following the trade deadline, where we did trade away Grigory Denisenko and Andrew Kopp. So those are 2 contributors that we don't see here. Now we'll just sort by position real quick, as Mangiapane led with 28 goals. Bryan Rust had 28 on the season, but only 10 of them came with our Whalers. Zadina was second with 27, Scheifele with 26, Landeskog and Karlsson each had 25, and then Brock Besser, the last guy to eclipse 20, he had 22, Wilson with 17, Roslovic with 16, Gurianov had 13, and Brandon Montour with 10, Sillinger as well with 10, and we also said Bryan Rust had 10, but in only 19 games, so his pace was absolutely absurd. Hopefully he can carry that into the postseason. Leading in assists was Montour with 51. Scheifele had 50. Leo Carlsson had 45. Zadina with 40. Bryan Rust ended his season with 39, but 9 of those did come with Hartford. Besser with 38. Roslovic 37. Landeskog and Tom Wilson each had 33. Mangiapane with 31. And then a big dip here as we get to Provorov, Gurianov, Sami Maki with 15. Our leader in points, as we said, for the 4th straight season was Mark Scheifele. Leo Carlsson, the only other player on the team to hit 70. Brian Rust here at 67, but only 19 came with the Whalers. Zadina was 3rd on the team with 67. Montour at 61. Besser at 60. Mangiapane 59. Landeskog 58. Rozovic with 53. And then Tom Wilson hits 50. And now going over to plus minus, Andrew Peeke at 36, followed by Provorov, his pairing mate there on the second defensive line for our Whalers at 32. Leo Carlsson at 24, our top forward. So his 5-on-5 impact has really made major strides this season. I think playing with Brian Rust towards the end of the season on that second line had a lot to do with it. Sammy Maki at 22, Jack Rozovic at 20, Landeskog at 17, Zadina and Montour both at 14, Mangiapane at 11, Tom Wilson at 10, Scheifele at just 9. And we'll see if we had anyone in the negative. Just a couple players here in the negative. Jordan Spence at minus 11. Not good there. Cole Sillinger at minus 3. So just barely went negative. And like I said, I think he was on the 4th line every single game as our centerman there. And Brian Rust at minus 1. But I think he had a much better plus minus with Hartford. Actually just plus 2. So not much better. But he does still end overall as a minus player. Now leading in PIMs, we have Provorov and Scheifele both with 32. Montour at 28. Besser at 24. Peeke at 21. A very disciplined team. We didn't really rack up many penalty minutes this season. Leading in shots was Scheifele at 256, Mangiapane at 217, Besser and Landeskog also over 200. Shooting percentage, Carlsson at 16.2. Of course, more known for his playmaking ability. His shot took a big step forward this season. Zadina at 14.6, Rust at 14.4. I wonder what it was specifically with Hartford, though, at 21.7 in those 19 games with the Whalers. Jacob Perreault at 13.9, our 4th line right wing. So when he was getting the opportunities, he was burying them for the most part, albeit in a small sample size. Mangiapane at 12.9, Landeskog at 12.2, which was more than doubled from last season. I think he was at like 5% last year in his final season with the Avalanche. Game-winning goals, Scheifele led with 7, Mangiapane with 6, Carlsson and Besser each with 4, and then a bunch of guys here with 3. And of course, it just goes down from there. Leading in power play goals, we said, was Mangiapane with 8. Brock Besser was right behind him with 7. Tom Wilson with 4. Scheifele, Rust, Gurionov each with 3. Leading in power play points, like goals, was Mangiapane. He had 16, 8 power play goals and 8 power play assists. Brock Besser with 12. Brian Rust and Zadina each with 10. Shorthanded goals, we had 1 from Brandon Montour, Tom Wilson, Brian Rust, and Sillinger. As Brian Rust, I think, had a shorthanded goal and a power play goal in the same game, if I'm not mistaken, on that. Ryan Graves and Sillinger each with 2 shorthanded points. And our time on ice per game goes to Montour at 25 minutes, 48 seconds. Sammy Maki behind him by more than a minute and a half at 24:05. And then Scheifele, our top forward, at 21:52. Zadina and Rust also eclipsed 20 minutes per game. And now looking at faceoffs, who led in this category. We'll give the nod here to Leo Carlsson at just 379 faceoffs taken. He was on the wing a good bit this season between the 1st and 2nd line, also at center, and he finishes at 52.8. Our 4th line center here, Cole Sillinger, behind him at 51.5, and Jack Rozovic over 1,100 faceoffs taken at 49% even, and right behind him, Mark Scheifele with over 2,200 draws was 48%, and that was really our main contributors, as we really have lacked that faceoff specialist in terms of a centerman. We got to probably focus on that this offseason. Landeskog led with 152 hits. Sammy Maki behind him at 144. Tom Wilson with 135. Andrew Peeke with 131. Montour at 129. Scheifele 128. Zadina at 123. And block shots, the leader here is also Sammy Maki at 113, using that 6'4", 218 body to get in the way of a lot of pucks this season. Montour at 97, 91 from Peeke, Provorov at 70, Graves at 69, and Spence at 60. And that's all the defensemen there leading the way. Jack Rozovic led all forwards with 20 on the team giveaways. Montour with 76, Maki with 74, Andrew Peeke at 71 takeaways. Brian Rust is the leader with 112. Leo Carlsson with 93, Scheifele, Rozovic behind them. Fights. And we had no fights for, I think, the first time in this franchise so far. As I said earlier, the enforcer is a dying breed right now in the NHL, but hopefully we can find one and insert him to our 4th line. So now going over to goaltending, Yaroslav Askarov did miss maybe like a combined month or 2 over the course of this season, so only 48 games played for him, and he finished with 30 wins, 12 losses, and 6 overtime losses for a very respectable record. 4 shutouts with a .902 save percentage, .288 goals against, and I think both of those numbers were down from last season, as he was at a .273 and a .910 last season, but that came with 13 more starts, and even though he had much more of a sample size last season, he was just 1 win short of matching last year's total. Any playoff stats here for Askarov, as he does have 6 going back, I think that was 3 years ago, with the Predators. He went 3-3 in that series, one shutout, a .901 save percentage, and goals against at .318. Then Daniil Tarasov, our backup, he's been phenomenal over the past 2 seasons, playing second fiddle to Askarov. He was 18-13-2 with 3 shutouts, a save percentage over .900, and a goals against under 3, which I think is more than you can ask for in a backup goaltender. One of the last 4 remaining players from our original expansion draft, and I see he came over from Columbus, and probably going to be his final run here with the Whalers, as Javon Marks at the AHL level, more than ready to break through to the NHL next season. And speaking of the AHL, we are set for an AHL playoff run of our own here, our Poughkeepsie Panthers. And we're not going to go too deep into these stats, but I did want to showcase some of our top prospects. And that all starts here with Frederick Leonard, who is considered to be the top prospect right now in our farm system. He enjoyed a very good season here with Poughkeepsie. I think his second season with the Panthers last year, he had 58 points. This year with 60, and he sets a high with 42 assists, a plus minus of 20, and he also had 7 points on the power play. His puck skills are off the charts, all of them at 94 or better, with 98 for passing. Does need improvement there with the defense and definitely the skating as well, as the skating definitely not a strong suit. All those ratings in the high 70s, but he's not too far from the NHL, former second round pick from the 2024 draft. That was the same draft where we had Sami Maki at number 1 overall, and Leonard does have elite potential, so hopefully we can continue to develop him into the NHL over the next season or 2. And Andrei Vorobiev, another right wing here, a first round pick from that next draft, 2025, and that actually was from our playoff year, as Vorobiev, his first season of North American hockey, goes for over 30 goals there in the AHL with 57 points total for the 5'11", 189-pound sniper out of Russia, currently our 5th best prospect in the farm system. He led the team with goals, and he's probably another year or 2 away from NHL action. Another prospect here, we have Braden Swartz, like Leonard from that 2024 drafted 2A forward here at left wing, 6'2", 195. And he's definitely not as highly rated as Leonard or Vorobiev, but I think Swartz definitely can emerge as a quality player for us over the next couple seasons. And then at that point, maybe ready to make his NHL debut with our Whalers if he's able to hang around in our farm system. We are going to try and make some big trades here coming this offseason because the free agent market doesn't look like it's going to be all that strong, so we might have to look to improve our roster elsewhere. And I mentioned Javon Marks at 44, 20, and 4 with 5 shutouts and 916 save percentage, a 224 goals against for the 23-year-old goaltender, up to an 81 overall now. And he does have that elite medium potential second round pick for 2024, that same draft with Leonard and the aforementioned Braden Swartz. And Marks is currently considered our 3rd best prospect in the farm system, and next year he is going to make his NHL debut and probably back up Yaroslav Askarov most of the way, but hopefully he can find his form there and build up that confidence and then eventually take over for Askarov once his contract expires. And at that point we'll have Marks waiting in the wings and set to take over as a potential franchise goaltender is what the hope is. But now at this point we are going to segue into our final segment here and preview the New York Rangers roster and get a taste for what awaits us in the first round of the NHL playoffs. And starting here, they do have some star power still up here on the top line between Mika Zibanejad and Artemi Panarin. Panarin up to 36 years old and Zibanejad at 34. So, the window is closing for these longtime New York Rangers, these veterans who are still eager for that first Stanley Cup championship. The Rangers actually have made the postseason all 5 seasons now of this franchise, but each time they have been outed in the first round. So they have not exceeded the first round of the NHL playoffs over the past 4 years as they're trying to break that streak, but we're trying to keep that streak going. And to add insult to injury, even last season, they were the President's Trophy winners and then ended up being eliminated against the Columbus Blue Jackets, I believe it was, as they ended up with the final wildcard spot, just merely beating us out by a few points as Panarin and Mika Zibanejad combined for over 170 games of playoff experience. And going down here to the third line, they actually have Evgeny Malkin, now his second season as a New York Ranger, up to 41 years old now, coming off a 53-point season, which is very good, considering his age, had 51 last season. And of course, Gino is a 3-time Stanley Cup champion, trying to get number 4 here, and it is going to be weird seeing him sport that New York Rangers sweater. He was not in the game a few episodes back when we did beat the New York Rangers. We actually ended up sweeping the season series against them 3 straight, but that doesn't matter now. But we are going to try and keep that going. Kevin LeBlanc, the third forward here, making up that top line. His first season as a New York Ranger, posted his first 20-goal season, and that definitely can be attributed to the fact of playing alongside Zibanejad and Panarin. Led the Rangers with plus 35 and plus minus, and had a good playoff run last year in Winnipeg as they made it to the second round. He posted 9 points in 11 games, and that earned him a 3-year contract here with the Rangers. But I think they are a little top-heavy now. Going down to the second line, they have Igor Sharangovich, former New Jersey Devil. He has been around here with the Rangers for a few seasons now. His third season in New York. He's on the second line with Philip Hedl as the centerman, former Rangers draft pick and still kicking it here. And another player desperate to break past that barrier that is the first round of the NHL playoffs. And Pierre Engvall, a longtime NHL journeyman here. We'll look at the playoff stats. 62 games of experience scattered across time with the Rangers, the Blackhawks, the Islanders, and of course the Toronto Maple Leafs, where he was originally drafted. And he has been productive in his 2 seasons with the Rangers, over 30 points this year, and that 6'5", 219 frame might be a lot to keep up with. Jesper Bachfist they acquired at the trade deadline. Not much of an impact though, only 5 points in 18 games. They're hoping he can pick it up here on what they hope to be a long playoff run. Blake Lizotte, the third-line centerman, his first season with the Rangers, 9 goals, 24 assists, and 33 points. And like Kevin Labanc comes over from Winnipeg, he signed a 1-year contract. And Evgeny Malkin, we saw him on this third line. We'll take a look at the overall playoff stats, but if he does retire, he's going to end up with 1,533 career points, 925 assists, 608 goals in over 1,400 games played. I got to check where that would put him on the all-time ranks in playoff-wise. 188 points in 189 games, so just short of 1 per game there by the slimmest of margins. And it's definitely going to be interesting seeing him here in the Rangers red, white, and blue as they embark on a playoff run. Vincent Trocheck making up the fourth-line center. Very good player here in that spot. Now a long-tenured New York Ranger. Was blank, though, in last year's playoff. 0 points in 6 games for a -4 rating. And alongside him is going to be Mason Shaw coming in at an 80 overall, and also Curtis Lazar, so pretty weak there on the bottom line, at the wings at least. Lazar, another like journeyman here, kind of in the same mold as Pierre Engvall, but at least Engvall has been productive as the Rangers like second line, third line guy. And now defensively, this unit has pretty much remained intact fully, with Adam Fox, Keandre Miller making up the top pairing, Ryan Lindgren with rookie Matthias Smid, the Chechen defenseman, a first-round pick, just came straight to the NHL, and he held up quite well in his first taste of North American hockey. Braden Schneider and Jacob Trouba making up that last pairing. So the blue line, I think, definitely a strength for the Rangers despite low ratings here from Lindgren. Although, I mean, 83 is still pretty good. Smid, though, at 79, maybe that rookie inexperience we can expose. And Trouba and Schneider do make up a very solid pairing there on the third line. Of course, most of these guys very experienced at this point, but Adam Fox, his playoff woes have definitely been well documented up to this point. Only 1 goal in the last 27 playoff games here for the Rangers. As I said, they have yet to break past that first round barrier, but Fox did have a tremendous rookie season, as we saw towards the top here in defenseman league leaders, and definitely vying for the Norris Trophy, although I think it will go back to Cale Makar and Keandre Miller. We saw another good season with the Rangers, 44 points, and he now has over 50 games of playoff experience, although only 1 point over the last 3 years. So a lot of these guys, especially on the defensive side, look to not really be producing. Ryan Lindgren, now 30 years of age, all of these seasons with the Rangers, over 50 games of playoff experience. And Matthias Smid, we said he was the 29th overall pick from this past NHL draft, came right to the NHL. Now 19 years old, 24 points as a rookie, and looked very comfortable most of the way. He's ready for his first taste of playoff action. And Jacob Trouba, now 34 years old, he's still kicking here with the Rangers, over 80 games of playoff experience, as he's going to be paired up there with Braden Schneider, now 26. The offensive production isn't always there, but a good 5-on-5 defenseman, and another player who really hasn't produced, only 1 point over the entirety of this franchise. So hopefully we can keep the bad times going there for the Rangers and prevent them from winning their first playoff series in what would be 5 years now. And like I said, I think very top heavy there with Panarin and Zibanejad. They're definitely going to be a problem when they're out on the ice, and Labanc is going to be a very good two-way player, I think, for them, feeding them the puck and winning it in forecheck opportunities. Looking at the power play, of course, they have Zibanejad, Panarin, and Adam Fox, all of them lethal, but definitely going to be a big downgrade now going to power play unit 2, as I don't think really much to worry about there. So I have to really just worry about their top power play unit. Got to keep playing our disciplined Hartford Whalers brand of hockey, because I think if we can keep their power play off the ice, we're going to have a very good chance in this series. As I mentioned, we did sweep the season series 3-0. I think the last matchup was 4-2, and we even had a 3-0 shutout victory at one point over the season. As we will go over to goaltending now, and they are without Igor Shesterkin, who left a few years back, signing a massive contract with the Calgary Flames, but they are in good hands here in the form of last year's Vezina Trophy winner. It's now Adin Hill's 3rd season with the New York Rangers. Came in right away when Shesterkin left in free agency. They had an immediate replacement, as his numbers have been very, very good during his time as the starter here for the Rangers. Last year we said he was the Vezina Trophy winner, posting a record of 43-17-3 2023, a 917 save percentage, 240 goals against, but those numbers have come back down to earth a little bit. The goals against now at 286, the save percentage just barely over 900, and only 2 shutouts in 62 games, as his backup even actually had more shutouts. But looking at the playoff stats, Adin Hill did lead the Vegas Golden Knights to a Stanley Cup championship, which would now be 5 years back. Also the last time the Rangers made it past the first round of the playoffs. And even though they were eliminated in 6 games last year, he did post very good numbers, a 937 save percentage, a 162 goals against, as he stopped 150 out of 160 shots, as the Rangers were eliminated 4-2, and 2 of those losses actually were in overtime. So obviously that could have swung the series in a huge way if they're able to come away with even one of those victories. But Adin Hill, a good defense in front of him. Still, I would say one of the best goaltenders over the past 2 or 3 seasons here in the NHL. And they are in good hands here, even at the backup spot. Jack Reeves, as I said, did have more shutouts than Adin Hill, doubling to 4. A very effective save percentage there at 922. A goals against just barely over 2.1. And he was 15-7 in 23 games played. So that is a look here at the New York Rangers. Let me know what you think our odds are here in the first round. Even though we did sweep them in the regular season, I'm still very apprehensive at entering this playoff series with confidence, just because the Rangers are a very good team, and that top line of Zibanejad and Panarin can strike at absolutely any time. But this is where I'm going to leave, folks. Thank you so much for watching. We got through all the formalities, the pageantries here in this Year 5 season recap episode. We looked at the standings, the league leaders, a little taste of the playoff picture, but more importantly, we know who our enemy is here in round 1, as our Whalers back in the postseason for the first time now in 3 seasons, as like the Rangers, we're also looking to break through that barrier and go on a deep playoff run. But as always, everybody, it's been real, and be well. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.